before I get too late in this episode, what time is it?
Do this real fast. Ask your
yo
aunties.
Because
we
ask
only talked about four things.
Did we? Oh, I'm surprised we did 4. Let me get my T-bars right.
I think we got a long ask aunties too.
Dude. Okay, here we go. Here's the question, and this is literally hot off the presses. That's why we're doing it today, because I was like, I gave advice in the DMs, but I was like, ooh, we need to ask the aunties on this one because this is deep.
Yeah.
So it says, I've been seeing a guy for 7 months or so. We'd been fucking for about a year before that, and eventually we're exclusive fucking, and then kind of unexpectedly found ourselves in love. But he isn't out, and he's got 2 kids and a lot of trust issues. To be clear, I would say up until very recently, our relationship has been about 85 to 90% utterly blissful. We are so in love, and I'm putting the emphasis because that's how this person typed it out. In love, and the sex is better than anything I ever had. But I wonder if you can recommend a queer Black therapist who can help us. He's so amazing, but hasn't ever tried therapy, but is so willing to try and keep us together. And I feel like if we could just have someone help us speak the same language, we would be able to navigate this immense struggle. So aunties, A, do you have a therapist to recommend? And B, any advice on how to handle this? It's a lot.
I personally don't have any therapist to recommend. And was it specifically like a person of color therapist they were looking for as well?
The person that sent it, I think, is a person of color, but then the person he's saying is a Black guy. And so it sounds like he was looking for a Black specific therapist to be able to relate more for his struggles.
They're a rare find. A rare find. Honestly, it's hard to, let me take it back. I've been looking for a therapist. My therapist is not Black, but I'm not gonna lie, if I found a Black therapist, I think I would be inclined to jump ship no matter how well it's currently going. Because I just honestly, personally, someone who has had multiple therapists, I know what it's like to have someone that truly gets you. I've had a straight woman, and I was like, okay, she got me. And then I had a straight man. I was like, oh, he gets another side of me. Then I have someone currently who's queer, and I'm like, okay, I feel more connected. But as a queer Black person, I feel like just a Black person in general would get me on a whole other level that another therapist could not understand me. So one, I commend looking for a Black therapist just because there are certain things about being Black that only a person who is Black can understand. That's just the truth. Yeah. You know, everything other than it is just empathy, apologies, etc. But until you can actually relate, you just don't know. You just don't know. But I personally love the fact that, you know, as a couple, you're looking into getting therapy. That is something that we have done. We are currently not doing it together anymore, but it has helped with communication, honestly, and learning how to speak to each other in an effective manner that, you know, stopped us from having, you know, a nuclear meltdown every time we were talking about why their dishes, you know, still in the sink. You know, like it really helped us be like, okay, everything can't be to the 10th degree. Sometimes you just got to keep it small. Sometimes you got to learn how to let it go. But well, I done ripped out my earpods so I can't hear y'all. But I don't know. Honestly, I really don't have much to say on this one. Because I'm personally going through it, if that makes sense. So I just feel like I haven't really made it to a place where I can give the best advice outside of, you know, encouraging you to continue to still look and say that I think it's a great thing that you are looking. But just make sure that's something that both of you want, because therapy just can't, for a couple, can't be just for one person. It has to be for all parties.
Yeah. I appreciate that. So I will, let me.
Right, he had to put his hair up.
Let me get into Auntie Chardonnay mode.
I know that's right.
Make sure this is legit. There. Better. So I wanted to share a resource with everybody. It's the www.nqttcn.com network, and this is the National Queer and Trans Therapists of Color Network. And this is a website that connects you to resources based on geographic location that have people of color, therapists of color, who you can connect with. So while I can't recommend a specific therapist because I don't know where you are, community member, I am drunk.
I was about to say, we drinking this episode.
I am I'm struggling to get these words out. just gonna be honest with y'all. So please know that this is coming from a place of love, and I want to be able to make this as cogent as possible, but it may not come out that way.
Are they in an interracial relationship?
Right.
In a relational.
I tried it.
I can't stand you.
Yeah, he hasn't said that in a while. He's got to steer clear of that word.
Look, it only takes a couple of fails to realize what you can't do.
He hasn't said that word in a good year.
Nope. So my bun fell. My bun fell. So the nqttcn.com website is the National Queer and Trans Therapists of Color Network. And it is a national organization that is intended to connect people with specifically the queer community with therapists that can relate to their cultural expression. And so I would highly recommend, reaching out and seeing, going to their website, reaching out, going to your specific region and finding a therapist, even virtually, because not everything requires you to physically go to a person's physical location to interact with them. You can have the same kind of therapeutic experience virtually. So I would encourage you to do that. If that is something that, let me caveat this by saying, I would not recommend that you automatically book this and not have a conversation with your partner, okay? Because therapy is an opt-in experience. It is not a mandatory experience. So I would just say, beyond the alcohol that is working through my system, I actually am giving good advice. So
yeah. She tooted her own horn.
I know that's right. Fall off. But what I would say is, number one, I would encourage you to have a conversation with your partner to say, hey, listen, I know that you have, that there's an opportunity to really kind of unpack what being out, being gay, what being in a relationship can mean for you, particularly for a person who is not, who has all of these other complexities of their relationship. You've got kids, you have baby mamas, you have other things that you need to unpack. In the context of our relationship, if we are to move forward with this, I think that we might benefit from some support. And I think that this might be a way to help. And I would recommend the both of you go on the website together and find and it doesn't have to be this website, but I'm just giving you a resource. Doesn't have to be this website, but I'm giving you a resource. And I would recommend that you do this as a joint venture, because I think that the benefit that you can get from the therapeutic experience is that if you are both opted into it, you're both committed to, hey, I don't have the communication skills. I don't have the relationship skills. I don't have the ability to work through this, that, and the other on our own. And we need a mediator to help us with that, to help navigate these waters together. If you are both to that idea, then it's really just a matter of finding the right facilitator, the right therapist in order to make that happen. So, again, giving you this as one option. Certainly, encourage you to look at Google and look at, your friend network to see if there are other options that may, or other people that may have a personal recommendation. But the more that you both can be included in the process of identifying the potential therapist, I think the more successful the experience would be, because you're both bought into it. What are you thinking, Crow?
I'm
Because
torn.
my tequila is kicking in, so I don't know how much.
I know this. Like, let me get this out before mine started really kicking. I'm torn just because it sounds like one person's out and the other person isn't, and I'm hoping the therapy is his idea, the one that is not out, because I feel like when you, especially when it gets to therapy, there's, and especially as gay Black men, we know that cultural thing of being in this community. There's going to be so much that he has to unpack that he might need to do this on his own first and then bring your ass in, because I don't know. Because I'm thinking, like, because when Corey and I first started dating, I wasn't out to everybody.
Right.
And I'm trying to put myself back in that situation. If I were to go to therapy with Corey at that point, I don't know if I could be 100% honest, quite frankly. It might turn into me trying to keep the relationship more than me dealing with myself.
That's
and
real.
So
that's real.
So it's just like, in one regard, yes, it's nice that you're helping them try to find a therapist and things like that. But if it's not his idea, it might turn into resentment that you're forcing him to do this now and this and that. So part of me is just like, maybe give him the resources to seek it out. And if he actually goes and finds a therapist, maybe tag along, maybe the first session and be like, hey, we have a lot to unpack, because therapy's a long game. It's not a short game. It's not going to be like in a month.
2 or 3 sessions, you got to figure it out.
Like, everything's unpacked and we're going to live happily ever after, you and the kids and the baby mamas. If that's your expectation, you're setting yourself up for failure. It's not going to happen that way. Especially when it comes to coming out. Like, if he hasn't been out yet, like, that's the beginning. That's
a lot.
Like, because it sounds like from this question, he didn't even know he was able to fall in love with the guy. Well, that's a lot to unpack. And so for you to be there from that, where you're probably already farther along and out and living your best life, I don't know if that's the best situation to set him up for success, and your relationship up for success. So I hope you go into this knowing that if you truly love him and think it's possible for him to live freely and be his authentic self, that is going to be a while. And that even if he comes out next week, there is just even collateral damage now, because there are kids involved, that it's going to just come from this, that he's going to have to deal with baby mother and maybe the kids and things like that. There's just a lot in this. So I don't know. Like, I'm glad that Dewan was able to provide an option in the DM when this came in. I sent them just a couple Instagram posts or accounts that we follow. They hopefully help you navigate that, but I just simply, hopefully, it's his decision to do it. A, B, that this is a long game. We've been out for a while, and there's still collateral damage and triggers that we deal with. We don't even know when it's going to come up sometimes. So that's my just fear, is just like, if you're in there, I almost feel for him that he's not going to be able to say what he needs to say. That you're like, if I say this, it might damage this relationship now, but it needs to be said.
Can I piggyback on that real quick? Because I think what you just said is really important. There so 2 things. One, depending upon your job and your insurance and all of this other kind of stuff, there may be additional resources available to the both of you. So just do the due diligence. Girl, I'm drunk.
The
due diligence. I know I'm trying to say it, but it's not coming out all right. Somebody is listening, like, rewind. What did he say?
You better hold on for 10 more minutes.
Come on, Connie.
Right.
Carney.
So do the due diligence to check out what your insurance thereof can support. And include people in the conversation. But also, what I would recommend for you specifically, community member, is be open to the idea that there may be 2 different tracks. One might be a track where he's coming to terms with who he is as a person. The other one is you two dealing with him going through that process, and what does that mean for the context of your relationship? So I'll just share that, and I know you had some thoughts.
So I actually have a little more to say in this situation because I didn't really think about it until now, but I have been referred to as the gatekeeper, in the sense of every person that I've ever dated has always been in the closet. And then I dated them, then they became in the closet. They start to be, making the steps to start their journey. And it didn't work out. And, at first I used to feel some kind of way about that. But I had to come to terms that, you may refer to it as love, but it could just be this moment where you are in this person's life to change your life for a specific reason and just that reason alone. And that's very much a possibility in this situation. You may have just crossed paths, and your role in this person's life may just be to encourage them to start their journey to be their most authentic self. And that happens, And like Juwan said, you could be in two different places, and this could be very much true. One thing you have to do is you have to respect the journey. You have to respect the journey of coming out. There is no recipe to say, oh, when you're dating someone that's fresh out of the closet, this is what you need to do to make that relationship work. It can be completely different because you have the baggage of their history as alone with whatever there is with the dynamics of their family that they're going to have to address. Then you're going to have to address the self-identification that individual is now going to have to try to figure out. And then they're going to have to navigate then being part of this new community as well. There's just so much that has to go. It's a lot. And there isn't a person or a thing that's going to give you an answer on what it is that's going to make it work for you. What you could only do is do your best and respect that other person's individual, their journey first. If you respect their journey first, then one, you're doing the right thing. You're doing it out of love. You're doing it for the right reasons, but don't be doing it because you want to advance your relationship with them. That's making their journey about you. Right. So you want to make sure that you are allowing this person to come into who they are supposed to be, not what you want them to be for you.
Because I'm rereading the initial question because the initial question was very long, so we tried to paraphrase it a little bit. And there's a part that I probably should have put in here that's kind of key too, because he's it's inordinately complex, but more importantly, it's hurting us both of him not being out right now. And that's another piece. It's just if it's hurting you, that 85 to 90%, that. You're not going to be able to be happy with no other human being, by the way, if you're not happy with yourself. So let's get that out there. Start there. So don't look to another person to make you happy in a relationship. You got to be whole and happy before you get in that damn relationship, because 85, 90%, it should be 100% with yourself, even though I know realistically you're never 100%. You're always growing and things like that. So don't look to him to provide this happiness. But B, if it's hurting you, you're not in the right relationship. A healthy relationship is not going to hurt you like that. And I know that it hurts because he's not out and it's complicated and the kids and things like that. But if it's literally starting to hurt you and harm you and your mental health and your emotional growth, and help him, yes, because you love him, I get it, and things like that. Find him potentially the resources, but then you might need to take a step back and maybe continue to work on yourself of why might I find myself in this position potentially, but then what do I even want this to be, knowing that this is going to be a long game and things like that. So I feel like there's even additional more questions you need to ask yourself before you even go into that first therapy session, because it might open up some stuff that you haven't dealt with yourself yet.
Yeah.
And now he
Like,
looking at you like, oh,
Yeah.
bitch, oh, I thought you was,
Right.
I thought you was healthy.
Yeah.
Your ass ain't even healthy neither.
Yeah. You know, but you got to ask yourself, like, you know, why is it, you know, what do I want? Why do I want this? You know,
Why
what's
do I
my
want
breaking
this?
point? You know, what am I willing to deal with and what am I not willing to deal with? You know, like ask yourself those questions first, answer those questions, and then worry about whether or not someone else needs the therapy. Because it could just be that it's not built for you. You know, you're not built for whatever situation that you're currently in with that individual. And it could be easy to say, oh, well, he actually needs the more work because he's going through XYZ, where in return, it's like, oh, well, you're also not built for XYZ situation.
Right.
Yeah.
So, you know, you kind of have to ask yourself those questions too, and make sure that you're looking for the right things. You know, and I want to.
Can I just say one thing?
I was gonna say one last thing. I do want to say as well, though, too. Relationships are work. Like relationships are work. You know, whether you know they are not as complex as this or are. You know, it's really up to the individuals to know when it's too much. You know, so although the three of us may be in long-term relationships right now, I can say for certain that all three of us have had the moments where we're like, is that a door?
When the window
okay, exactly. You know, look, I'm like the store that's like, your X's are here and right here. You got 2 X's in the front and 2 X's in the back.
Girl.
You know? Like, I didn't check them.
Is that crack open enough? Can I slide through this crack in this window?
You know? Right. But then you have to ask yourself those questions like, is this what I want? Yeah. Am I doing too much?
Why do I want
do I need to take a step back? Right. You got to ask yourself those questions like Carell was saying to then make sure you have the right perspective.
Motives going into this because therapy will reveal some shit.
I just want to say one thing. This is a total like hard left. I love y'all wigs. I want both of y'all. Y'all look so damn cute. Like y'all ends look so fresh and like so like Carell. I'm loving like the layers. Like you're giving me bangs that's framing your face and your glasses. And like I'm just like looking at this like, oh, y'all are so damn cute.
Oh, you too, honey. But and before we go to the hard left, continue to send your questions. We love these questions. We don't know all the answers, but we're just providing what we've been through and the lens that we've been through. Coming out is a whole thing. Yeah. And if you're coming out and dealing with someone in relationships with kids, that's a whole nother layer. You just got to be gentle with it. And you got to make sure that you're, like Jarrell said, are built for it. And that you've dealt with yourself and the whys and the questions before you hop in this, because it might do some shit that you didn't know. You didn't foresee it.
I mean, just the
you weren't ready.
Of being able
it's like, I wasn't ready.
Or just even just like in the mindset of being able to just like, instead of take accountability, being like, well, because this person's going through, it's actually, that's the reason why. It's like, no, the reason could be more me, but I'm so focused on the other individual that I'm not realizing that my
we put on the sex. There's a lot of good sex out there, but like, you can't cover up a relationship with just sex, because like when life get real, a dick in a hole ain't gonna answer some of this real stuff that comes along in long-term relationships. I'm just letting you know that it's a cherry on top, but you get to some real stuff in life.
Or bottom.
That part, right, exactly. Popping a lot of cherries, but so it's just like I just hope you're just doing the due diligence of thinking this all the way through and not in the lens of I'm so infatuated with this person, because infatuation and love it has its highs and its lows.
Do a T chart. I'm a fan of it. I'm a Capricorn. You know, pros and cons.
Yeah.
You know, like pros and cons, and then really think about those things that you say that are cons. You know, what are those things that you can do to make them pros, and what are those things that is his responsibility? What's a shared responsibility? You know, just really figuring out, you know, because again, relationships are work. I mean, there are things that I had to figure out. Oh shit, you know, maybe I should bite my tongue all the time. You know, maybe I should, you know, not all the time, but you know, more often I should say. You know, but you learn about yourself when you start thinking about someone else too, especially in a romantic way.
So we appreciate you like being vulnerable enough to send these questions to us. We don't take that lightly.
Thank you so much, bro.
So that's what 2 years in we enjoy about the community, that you guys are vulnerable, like with us, quite frankly, to ask these questions and trust that we'll at least try to provide you some insight of what we've been through. So continue to send your questions at aya@minoriteareport.com or DM us. That's where a lot of you guys do, is just simply DM us. It's easier that way. We get it. So continue to do that for the next 2, 3, 4, 10, 20, 30, 40 years of Minority Report.